Good afternoon, students. Mr. B is going to do this video on helping friends write some sentences about their picture. I'm going to use the same picture that I did in my previous video. Again, any image will work depending on how you write it. So there are no such thing as really bad images, right? So I'm going to copy this image and put it into my presentation here. Okay? And I'm going to just get rid of my title here. I'm going to make a title just for about the Oregon Trail here. Okay, so I might label as, I do need a label for my picture. I might say map of the Oregon Trail, right? Okay. But the hard part is, how do I write sentences that cover a geographic or political point of view? How do I write sentences about power? And how do I write sentences about conflict? Okay, remember, Mr. B will not write sentences. He won't even give you examples of sentences because then I am doing the work for you. Remember that in our U.S. Studies folder, I put an example of what power and conflict is. You can look at it and say, oh, sentences about power can include things about money. Sentences about power can include items that I have. Sentences about power can include land and resources, right? All these are good examples of power that you can use in your sentences. I guarantee that from your website that you do research on, one of these paragraphs or some of your sentences in your articles will relate to power in terms of this. Same with conflict. Okay? So that some of your information from your article will be able to find information about conflict from your article if you look at conflict in this term, in this point of view, this way. Okay? So going back to my project, how can I first want to talk about, do I want to say to the teacher, this is a geographic or political image, right? I would say that it's both, but I'm going to pick one because it's easier for me. And I'm going to say this image shows the geographic, the nice friendly word that I can use. It shows a geographic map of the Oregon Trail. I'm letting the teacher know that maybe this is my geographic point of view. And if I don't like this word map on Friday, I can go back and edit some of my sentences. It's kind of like reviewing a letter that you would write for Mrs. Miller or Miss Johnson, right? But now I need to talk about power and conflict. I do not want to talk about them together. Okay, that sentence will be too long. I want to break it apart, have a sentence or two about each. I know we've talked about how, remember, in our slideshow, that power can be about land and resources, right? So I can write that because I have a map about land. I can say the Oregon Trail allowed the United States to acquire more land and more resources, right? So it doesn't matter if I start with power or conflict first. I chose power, right? More land and more resources means more power for the United States. It's as simple as that. I don't have to talk for 5 more sentences about that. Okay? If I want to put my conflict sentence in here, I can too. If I run out of space, I can simply make a new slide, copy this image over, and then be able to talk about conflict. Right here, I might say that, whoops, it's in gray here. I might say that due to more land being explored, settlers often interacted with native tribes, right? Or indigenous people, right? I can even go further and say sometimes they were friendly and sometimes they were violent towards each other, right? And now I have a sentence about conflict about my map, right? So friends, remember that we can use our information from our previous slideshows. We can use the information from the articles that we are looking at to use the critical reading strategy and paraphrase the information from our articles and to put into our presentation. Remember, I don't want 10 sentences, just a few would be good. All right? Good luck, and don't forget to ask Mr. B questions on Schoology or email if you still have questions or needs.